Jim Meyers.
And I'm Joshua Cantu, and welcome to You Don't Know Squatch, the show all about Bigfoot. Bigfoot, do you prefer Bigfoot or Sasquatch?
Either one. They're kind of interchangeable terms, so yeah. we can go back and forth on that.
I also heard Wild Man. That's
Wild Man, Skookum, if you want all the names, it would take us all day.
So you're just tuning in, so I guess you want to know what this show is all about. This show is about everything Bigfoot, from cinema to legitimate research. In fact, Jim is a legitimate researcher, my co-host here. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, and we'll talk more about our store and museum in a minute, but we own a store called the Sasquatch Outpost, and we have a museum that we call the Sasquatch Encounter Discovery Museum. And yeah, we've done a lot of research in the Bailey area over the past 6 to 7 years, and we have tons of video and quite a few interesting stories to tell, and I'm sure over the next few episodes we're going to get into some of that.
And we're going to also make ourselves available for you, the listeners, to send us some questions, your thoughts, or even corrections you might have about anything that we say here on the show. So,
corrections like we make mistakes? It's not possible.
We're infallible. So, to get a little familiar with the format that we have going here, as you've heard, Jim is a researcher, and I myself am a little bit skeptical about the whole thing.
The resident skeptic.
I won't say I'm a non-believer, because who knows? I mean, when did they,
I know.
you know. I mean, they were saying the same thing about giant squid until one washes up on the beach, so.
That's right.
Who knows? So, usually we'll have a guest come in and talk to us, but, I mean, you are a well of information, so I figured, why not just have you as the guest on this first one?
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
I'm getting paid the big bucks for this anyway. So.
So I guess my first question is, what caused you to get in the Bigfoot business?
Well, it's interesting because the movie we're going to review a little bit later is really what got me going as a kid. 1972, I was 10 years old. The Legend of Boggy Creek, and I don't even remember what it was rated back then, but it was scary as hell. And I remember I just about crapped in my movie theater seat watching it, and for the time it was pretty scary, and because it was based on a true story and kind of in a pseudo documentary format, it's anyway, we'll get more into that in a bit, but that movie got me thinking at the time, I wonder if there really could be something like that out in the woods, and that interest kept going through all the years. I spent a lot of years living overseas, and that kind of took a back seat. But when we moved back to the States in 2009, I kind of renewed my interest, and with the help of the internet, started doing a lot of research, and then started going out and doing my own research and doing investigations. And it's funny, it doesn't take long before you get a title kind of like an expert or an authority, and I never imagined I would be considered that. I still don't consider myself an expert. I don't think there really is an expert on a unclassified species.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there's a lot of people doing research. But that and the fact that there's been a lot of sightings around Bailey, and when I first told my wife I'd love to get the store we were building, we were going to do a general mercantile kind of grocery store, and it took us a long time. The store we built to the store we are currently occupying was built in 1878, and it was in terrible shape. It took us about 9 months to rebuild it. But during that time, I met a gal who said she had seen Bigfoot in the Bailey area, and I had never to that point met an actual eyewitness. And I remember taking her to coffee and listening to her story, and she told me, and she's totally rational, running a business here in Bailey, and she and her best friend saw one daytime. Both of them saw it. They could describe it clearly. And so that fascinated me. And then the show Finding Bigfoot, or as I would say, Never Finding Bigfoot, came to town and did an episode. And I again told my wife, who up to this point was kind of looking at me a little strange, like, I don't know what you're into here, but, you know,
At this point, were you full on in?
I was full on in. I'd been full on in for a long time as far as, yes, they exist. But she kind of thought, nah, you know, if this floats your boat, that's fine. So I went to that town hall meeting, and there was like 100 people there with no advertising, all word of mouth. And I thought, man, there's a huge interest in this topic here. So we ended up calling our store initially Bailey Country Store and Sasquatch Outpost, and we had a little room at the back with some Bigfoot information. It only took about 2 years. We canned all the groceries and canned everything else and kept Bigfoot, and we haven't looked back, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because that kind of goes into what I was going to ask you next is, I mean, there's a lot of people here in Bailey. I would almost call this the Bigfoot heart of Colorado. Here in
It could be. Yeah.
Next to Pikes National.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's so many sightings here? And it's not like, you know, if you're listening at home, like, oh my God, sightings, whatever. But I mean, these are professional people. These aren't wackadoos. These are people I work with out in the community a lot, and they're squared away. They're smart, intelligent people, and they've claimed to see this around here.
And people come in to our store because they feel like someone will listen to them and won't make fun of them. Because I've known people that had sightings, you know, back in the 60s and never talked about it, because anytime they did, people would be like, what are you talking about, you nutcase? And so they can come into the store and we'll actually listen. And not only that, we'll ask them to write it down or record it. And so personally, I think, yes, there's been a lot of sightings and other encounters around Bailey, but I don't think Bailey's unique. I think if we in our store were located anywhere in the Rocky Mountain area, there'd be just as many people coming in. I think there's that many encounters. It's just most people don't talk about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't want that stigma to, like, you
sure.
know. I
You're the Bigfoot guy.
Yeah.
I gave up that. You know, I accepted that a long time ago. But a lot of people don't want to have that stigma.
Yeah. Well, here in Bailey, everybody's a
Everybody's
Bigfoot people.
a Bigfoot person. There you go. Bigfoot Mecca.
What was the one solid piece of evidence you found that made you a believer? What was the one thing you saw that was like, oh, this is for real?
Great question. You know, the very first thing, ironically, were some footprints that somebody found in the snow at Bailey Lodge, which is the lodge that this gal who told me about her sighting was running. She was the manager. And people said, oh, you know, of course there are footprints there because, you know, she was the one that saw Bigfoot and this is all a big hoax. And here's why I didn't think it was a hoax. One, the footprints were 7 to 8 feet apart. And they were 17 to 18 inches long, each footprint.
That's a long gait.
Long gait, yeah. And they were in line, meaning it wasn't offset right, left. They were in line all the way up from the river. Obviously, whatever this was had gone down to drink, came up through the snow, walked past Bailey Lodge, went up over a hill, stepped over a fence, and went into the woods. And I thought, and there were no footprints around it. It was just this one pristine row of footprints, 7 to 8 feet apart. And if you wanted to hoax it, I don't know how you would have done it, because if you were on, I mean, just to do 7 or 8 feet, you'd have to be on stilts of some kind in the snow and at night, because somebody did it at night. And I just thought, no, this has to be a real Sasquatch. And later on, somebody found another track line coming down the mountain, a little 100 yards away to the river. So they were both up and down. So, yeah, that was the first real evidence I found, even though other people looked at it and said, you know, somebody's hoaxing you, but I just didn't see how they could do it.
And there's no footprints or anything around to indicate? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a hard hide right there.
Yeah, you almost have to have more faith in hoaxing than you do in Bigfoot. I mean, it's just ridiculous what people think somebody has done as a hoax. I just don't see how they could do it.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to the wife about this recently, and even for the time when the original, what was the original Bigfoot tapes called? The original recording?
Oh, the Patterson Gimlin recording or footage, yeah.
And that was what, the 70s?
That was 67.
67.
Yeah.
So even further back. I mean, my argument was that, Hollywood FX wasn't that great back then.
No. In fact, the guy that did the costumes for the original Planet of the Apes, Charlton Heston, he won, or they were nominated for an Academy Award for costumes. He was, because they did a great job. I mean, these gorilla costumes were fantastic, and the masks. But he admitted later himself that when asked about this, he said, "To be honest, I didn't, and nobody had the technology in 1967 to build a suit that could do what that creature did in that movie." And he said, besides that, if you remember in the movie, the only parts that were ape were the heads and hands and feet, because he couldn't make a suit for the whole body that was realistic. So he covered them in clothing. And so, yeah, it's just, you have to look at what was actually possible at a given time before you just dismiss it.
I mean, it's almost like one of those movies, Now You See Me. It's almost magic how they get away with it.
Yeah, exactly. There was no CGI in 1967, so.
All right, well, I let people know that we were going to do this, and I have a few questions.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, so I guess we'll call this segment Squatch Brings a Mail. I'm sure we'll have a funny little sound.
Bring up the little ding-a-ling for email. Yeah.
The first one's from Linda C. in Colorado Springs. Now, this is funny. This is actually one I've heard you answer before. Is there only one Bigfoot?
Oh, is there only one Bigfoot? Yeah. Go back to your elementary school biology class, and we get asked this all the time in the store. Really? There's more than one? And I have a hard time answering that seriously. It's like, yeah, he's either extremely fast that he can run around the country and be seen in every state in the United States and self-multiply somehow. They're not hermaphrodites. No, there's got to be thousands, maybe even more, to have a viable gene pool. I mean, it's just logic. It's just basic biology. There has to be a breeding population. And in fact, they're seen a lot in family groups, not just individuals. People see males, they see females. The one in Patterson Gimlin was a female. She had breasts, which is strange. If you're going to make a Sasquatch suit in 1967, why give it breasts? It was just harder to make it that way. Just make it male. I mean, come on, it's ridiculous.
That's more, latex.
Latex. Yeah, serious latex for Bigfoot boobs, man.
Another question is, if I ran into... Oh, sorry, this is from Mario M. from Rio Grande, Texas. Okay. Texas.
Wow.
All right. What would be your best defense against a Bigfoot if you came across one out on the trail?
Best defense. So that's assuming that, the Bigfoot is aggressive. If he's aggressive, I don't know there's much you could do. There's a lot of people that have claimed to have shot them. I can't say one way or the other, but... and I often go out, when I'm out in the woods, just hiking. I carry a gun, but I've often thought, I think it would just piss a Bigfoot off, to shoot him, and then you're going to be in a worse situation. Your best defense to me is just to have an attitude of, hey, I'm not here to hurt you in any way. If a Bigfoot's intent on doing something to you, doesn't matter what you do anyway. You're not going to get away. I mean, this is 9 feet tall. He can outrun you, anything you. So I think the vast majority of them are more curious about us than we are about them, and I have a lot to share about that. in other episodes of gifting with Bigfoot and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think just standing and, I've often asked myself if I came face to face with a Sasquatch. I've seen one at a distance, I believe. But if I came face to face, would I have an impulse just to run? Would I fall down? Would I, and I would like to think I would just stand and stare at it and try and take in as many details as I could, because usually what happens is they'll be there for a moment and then they just move away quickly. So I don't know if there'd be a defense. I don't know if it's even possible if you wanted to have a defense.
What do you think about bear mace? You think bear mace might be
bear mace? Yeah, no, that really pisses me. The Jack Links don't mess with Sasquatch. I think you spray bear mace in his face and you're cooked, man.
Well, that wraps it up for our question segment.
Okay.
We'll be sure to put a link in the description where you can send us questions or your thoughts. Please do. We'd love to hear them. And I guess that takes us to our next segment.
Squatch at the box.
That's right. All right. So this movie that we watched this time was, of course, the 1972 Legend of Boggy Creek. Now, this has its own IMDb page and everything.
It was a big movie back then.
It has a G rating. You were asking about that earlier. Now it's listed as a drama, horror, and mystery. But when I was watching the movie, actually, I came across when I was trying to find the movie, I came across a documentary about the movie, and it turns out they started off as a documentary for this film.
Okay.
And they actually used a lot of the people,
the original people who were in that situation.
It's a decent movie. I liked it. There were some parts that, as a film guy myself, that kind of threw me off. There was that weird
part.
The weird little Disney there was two songs in the middle of the movie that just kind of threw me off.
Well, and it's funny how they mix the music. It's like na 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 bah, bah, bah. And it's like, why are you mixing this little happy girly music with this dramatic?
Exactly. If they were going for the whole thriller type style, Disney music's really not the way to go.
What'd you think? I mean, it was, for its time, I think it was not a bad movie, actually.
Yeah, considering other things that were being made during that time, 72, I'm not sure, but I think Day of the Dead was around that time. So I did get a kind of similar vibe when I was watching it. It was definitely a 70s movie.
Sure.
Honestly, quality-wise, I couldn't find it on Amazon, and I couldn't find it on Google. I had to find it on some...
I'm amazed. I thought it was on Prime or something.
See, it's listed there, but it's not...
Interesting.
You can't watch it. It says it's not available yet. It reminded me a lot, too, of drive-in movies of the time.
Sure. And the acting wasn't fantastic because these were real people who were playing themselves, basically.
And a lot of it, it's like watching a foreign movie where it's kind of dubbed over. It's like they, instead of recording the sound live, they had them come back to the booth and ADR it.
Which always sounds funny when they're talking in a studio, but they're outside.
Yeah, you can fake it with Foley noise and stuff like that, but it doesn't sound right. The movie only cost $100,000 to make, but it actually grossed $20 million.
Yeah.
So it was a success for the first-time director.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They call it the Legend of Boggy Creek, but it's actually about the Fouke. F-O-U-K, Fouke monster, which is what they call Bigfoot.
And that's
in Arkansas.
Yeah, that's the first time I heard Wild Man too.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you think of the movie? Did you?
I'm sure we're gonna review lots of movies, and not just for its time, but also the topic. I think it was not a bad movie. Even today, I don't think it's a bad movie. I thought their creature character was done pretty well for the time, even better than some more modern movies I've seen, because they never really show him. You get the hand coming through the window and stuff like that. But which I'm not even sure if that really happened. I suppose it did. They put it in there, but I thought, again, for its time, I mean, at 10 years old, like I said, it scared the crap out of me, and I was. It was a scary movie for me back then, especially because they made it like it was a real story, and they were the real people telling their stories, and it would be interesting. I don't know if they would ever do this, to go back today to Fouke, Arkansas, and find out what people think about that movie today, if they've still had other incidents since.
That's funny. I'll get into that right now in a second, because I actually was looking for the movie. I came across a documentary. Would you still, if the movie came out now, would you purchase it?
The way it was made back then?
Uh-huh.
No, it would be a bad B movie today.
Okay.
But I'm looking for a place I can buy them cheap and sell them at our store, because it's a classic to me. It's a Bigfoot classic.
Well, you're in good luck, because they have announced that they're restoring it in 4K.
Oh,
and
wow.
They're going to be releasing it again.
Now, how do you restore an old movie in 4K? That's crazy.
It's a process. You gotta digitize the film, and then you go in there and color. See, I don't know if they...
Because all you have is what you have on that movie. I mean, you can't add
anything. It would be the same movie, but what they would have to do is just basically either color the film, which I feel like would be problematic because you don't want to destroy the masters, or they would scan the film and then use modern technology.
So who's doing that?
I believe it is the daughter of the director, as well as the George Easton Museum.
Well, they must feel like there's enough interest to warrant making a remake or remaking it.
They actually plan to make it a theatrical release.
Re-release.
Yeah, they were actually going to re-release this.
Well, because there's, Bigfoot is big business and big topic all across the U.S. So, I mean, any given time, if you go on and look at your satellite guide, I mean, there's always a movie about Bigfoot on somewhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So.
What I also liked, like you were saying about the creature effect of the whole movie too, I loved how creepy he looked standing in the background of the trees. Because, it also smashed a common, something I always thought of Bigfoot, that it's only in the woods, like in the mountains woods. But no, that's swamp where they were. That's... I wouldn't want to run into that.
Well, it's interesting because there's I know there is a more recent situation. There's another museum in Georgia called Expedition Bigfoot that I went to. Great couple who run it, and he has an artifact in there that came from Fouke, Arkansas. He went down there, and apparently, I don't remember how long this was after the making of the movie. A person that lives in Fouke had a dog in a kind of a pen outside that had puppies. Big dog. If I remember, memory serves me, it was like a bulldog or a mastiff or something. A good big dog. And he came back one day. The puppies were gone. Again, I stand corrected perhaps, but I know the puppies were gone. The dog was dead, and there was a tree next to this pen, and the tree was bloodied about 6 foot up. So something had taken this dog and beat it against the tree, basically, and taken the puppies, and the dog was just smashed to smithereens. Well, Dave, who runs that museum, brought that dog pen back with him, and it's in his museum, the actual pen that he went and picked up from this guy. So that was post-movie. Incidents have still happened down there.
See, that's another question I was going to ask you, because we were watching the movie last night. It seemed Sasquatch's big beef was with the pets.
Dogs, pigs.
He didn't like that.
No.
He didn't like things that were on 4 legs and that low.
No.
Now, is that something that comes across in Bailey often, or?
No. That's interesting, because That has happened in a lot of places around the country. Interactions or encounters between dogs, particularly in Sasquatch, they just don't get along. Gorillas don't get along with dogs either. Gorillas kill dogs, I've heard stories about. So there's something about dogs that great apes don't, and I'm not calling Sasquatch a great ape. I'm just saying there's something about dogs. I don't know what it is, but around Bailey, dogs go missing all the time.
Well,
Most
that's
of
true.
us attribute it to mountain lions.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Until somebody actually sees a Sasquatch take a dog, but they don't see mountain lions take them either. They're just gone.
Okay. As somebody who owns 2 dogs, you just scared the crap out of me. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. You're welcome. That's my little gift for you today.
See, I never thought. That's nothing. As the skeptic, that's nothing that's ever crossed my mind until last night.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for Squatch at the Box, but as a little bonus tie-in, I'd like to plug this documentary I came across while finding this. It's by an author, Lyle Blackburn.
Yeah, I gotta check that out.
He wrote actually 2 books about is it the Falk? The Falk monster. One's called The Beast of Boggy Creek, The True Story of the Falk Monster, and the other's a lizard man. The lizard man's another monster, but it seems kind of what he does. He writes on this kind of
cryptozoology.
Yeah, that's actually. He made this documentary about, I guess, based off his research on his book. He thought he had enough to do the documentary. And it's all about the Legend of Boggy Creek. And you were asking if things still go on there. Yes.
Huh. Interesting.
There are so many people he had on that. And this is
current.
Recent, yeah.
Wow.
This is definitely HD times.
Yeah.
Got the drone up. I can tell, it's not helicopter work, but it's a little clunky on production.
Were any of the people the same people that acted in the original movie?
Yes, they actually talked to one of the kids, that the little boy Travis, I think it was.
Yeah, the narrator, as a man.
The one that has those silly songs about it.
Yes.
He interviewed them. The Crawfords, I believe, were the family that came up.
The family that had the daughter saw one and fainted or something.
Yeah, and then there was the father kept to himself about it, but he was out hunting in the woods one time and saw it.
Yeah, that's right, the Crawfords. Yeah, there were 2 Crawfords, two guys, like a father and son that saw this being, this Falk monster, out hunting. I believe both of them. Yeah,
and so according to him, events still happen out there. So I would definitely recommend, if you're interested in the subject matter, to check out that documentary. It is pretty cool. Like I said, production value might not be all there. It's not
right,
but he's a researcher, not necessarily a filmmaker. And I'd love to have him on the show sometime.
How long is his documentary?
I think it's about an hour. I'm not seeing it here for the time.
It's not just a little 20-30 minute thing. It's an actual.
Yeah, it was a full length documentary.
Cool, I gotta check that out.
But I guess that kind of wraps it up for today's. How do you think today went?
I think it was good. I think if we can get some guests in here, I like that you brought in some questions from people outside. I think we'll probably get more of those as we go. But yeah, there's a lot of people I'd love to get in on the show by phone or in person. And but we could go a dozen episodes just on current topics about Bigfoot. So I'm excited. I think it's great. We should have a Bigfoot humor. Tell a Bigfoot joke every time.
I'll start working on that. I'll find a good ones. Yeah, we'll try to get that going. I think it went pretty good too. And most importantly, we want to know how you thought it went. So if you could do us a favor, give us a rating on iTunes or Google Play or wherever you heard us at. We'd really appreciate that. And I guess until next time, stay squatching.
Yeah. You don't know Squatch.
You don't know Squatch.